Way to get us out the gate, Coach.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the UGASports Live podcast. My name is Rodney DeBolsa. I'm joined by Jake Roos and Jim Donnan. It is our normal Tuesday show in unnormal circumstances. The good news is one of the things that's gone on is we've spent a lot more time here at Academia Brewing Company, who just had a record sales month for beer. That shows what advertising with UGAsports.com does for you. We're going to take full credit, not the great beer, not the great food, not their new business dealings with at the brewing company that's putting out all of their, the distribution chain they have. It's just by being on the UGA Sports Live podcast with Coach Donnan. So
I know it's built my brand in that way.
So congratulations to Matt Casey and the team here at Academia Brewing Company. They do fantastic work. The food is great. We're going to have some food brought to the table here. I had some guys say last week they just stared at the food the entire time, did not hear a word we said, and just stared at the food. So
I never hear you.
It's food porn. So we'll have that for you later in the show. We of course we love our friends at Classic City Eats. They are off on vacation. They should be back. I think next Tuesday they'll be back in town, and so they'll be open on the 28th. We'll be back over at Classic City Eats. But in the meantime, we're going to try to milk Academia for all the beer we can get out of them for free. That's hey, they had a record sales month. They can afford it. So hook us up. Want to also give a big shout out to our friends at Athens Ford, Aaron Overhead Doors, Your Pie, and we're going to have a new advertiser coming on the website that you need to pay attention to. This is a big deal. This is one of the reasons that person has allowed us to bring on Jason Butt, the writer for The Athletic, who's covering the Falcons.
And does some great. He's doing
Jason
some great
Butt
stuff.
is killing it at UGAsports.com right now. He is just absolutely doing great long-form story. His Dylan Fairchild thing was an absolute must-read. His take on the quarterback situation was great.
He's got one coming on James Williams, too.
Really? I wonder how that happened.
Yeah.
Anyway, point being, we shout out. Thank you to our advertisers, and thank you for everyone who is watching. Now, Coach, the players are back on camp. The players have been on campus, but now they are actually being supervised by the coaches. The workouts are mandatory now. All the voluntary stuff is out the window. They actually have to. Oh, thank you. Michael Axios Porter is here. That's part of the show. The players are now working out with the coaches. That's mandatory stuff now. And I remember it was about the time, I guess it was a couple springs ago, you told us to look out for Eric Stokes, who nobody, I should say no one, but very few people thought he was just a raw speedster track guy who cornerback would be a novel thing for him. You told us to look out for Justin Schaefer before he blew up. You're always ahead of the curve on the guys that, and I'm not saying Georgia has any sleepers, because if you're a signee at UGA, then you're
on the radar.
You're on the radar. But even amongst the guys who are in these classes, the freshmen, the offense, defense, you always point out somebody way ahead of time. And so I'm going to put you on the spot and say, who should we be looking out for now? Who's not the Nolan Smith? That's not fair. I do that. I get to pick the easy ones. You got to pick somebody who is not the guy that everyone's going, oh yeah, well, we really expect him to start as a true freshman, or we expect him to have a big year. I would pick Azeez Ojulari to have a big year because I'm a cheater. but Coach,
I think George Pickens will do well.
Yeah, I think he might do well. Yeah, he might be pretty good. Let's not get too crazy. But Coach, if you would give us some guys on maybe offense, defense, freshman, anybody you think that we should be watching out for, if you would.
Okay, first of all, I want to wish our colleague Dane Young happy birthday today.
That's why he's not here.
Some pictures made. He's getting some pictures made of his newly born daughter. So he's not supervising this. So our producer is the guy on your right, who's doing a good job of hooking me up and linking me on. I always worry about. Only thing I worry about is every week whether I'm going to get linked on. And,
coaches become quite the technology over the course of shutdown.
I'm thinking about going back to computer science and getting a doctorate. But and I want to congratulate one of my ex-players today, too, that just got his doctorate from UGA. Ben Lowe from down in Thomaston, Georgia. Wow. Who was offensive lineman for us, the same place where Mike Cabin went to school, and his dad was coached there, and then Ben Lowe's dad was administrator down there. Does a good job. But Ben got his doctorate recently in education, and really happy for him. And you just never know how these guys are what they're going to end up doing. But really good for UGA to have another guy graduate in a doctoral situation. But getting back to your question here, the thing that I do have time to do is really analyze the players and watch tape and all, because, pretty much confined to being around the house most of the time. And you look at these guys and see where they're going to fit and how they're going to, who's going to be. Everybody knows the stars and everybody knows who's going to – but two guys that I want to point out, first of all, on offense. Number one, Warren Erickson is a guy that I really feel like is an epitome of what you want in a football player at Georgia, a guy that goes to work every day, does his job, and has worked out hard as a technician, knows what to do, very smart, and came through for us in the bowl game. And we're going to need a jack-of-all-trades type guy that can move around a little bit. I don't know that he would go in at tackle or not, but he could certainly play both guard positions. So I look for Warren Erickson to have a pretty good role on our team this year, based on maybe not starting, but definitely helping us more than maybe people might think. And then the other guy that we hear about, all these receivers and about all the guys that are projected and all the freshmen coming in and all, but watch out for Tommy Bush. Tommy Bush is a kind of guy that can make plays, got hurt last year, worked hard on the scout team. Last year when I watched him, 2 years ago, the first day he got there, I was sitting around there in the office with Jim Chaney, and he was talking about the guy's potential. And I went out there. The coaches couldn't watch, but I watched him, and he's really kind of got lost in the shuffle. So watch out for Tommy Bush. Those are two on offense. Defense, a little bit more of, who is somebody on defense that you can't pick out. I mean, they're stacked up like cordwood over there. I mean, they got so many guys. It's really incredible. And the one guy I think that's really going to break out a little bit is Anderson. I just think that he's used in so many situations where he was more of a pass rush specialist or put in on a different type of package. But I look for him to come in there. And, of course, Largy, you've talked about him, and Nolan Smith and Johnson, all those guys. But watch out for this guy. I mean, he really can be a big-time player, five-star guy. And the other one that I just makes my mouth water, you guys drinking beer, I'm drinking water, but I'm
drinking beer. He's drinking some weird fruit cocktail thing that's incredibly sour, and
it's delicious.
Lewis Seen, to me, is the kind of guy that everybody's expecting to do the job based on who he's replacing and who his competition is and everything like that. But boy, I'll tell you, this guy is balls out all the time, and I just feel like those two guys on defense. And then the two freshmen I want to mention, everybody knows about Ringo and, both those tackles and all, but watch out for Willock. Let me tell you something. This kid's attitude, his quickness, he hurt his ankle last year and didn't get to do anything. But this guy is a really kind of, I don't know what you would call it, but the name to say, but he's kind of a very much of a extroverted guy that moves in. He's got some leadership. He blends in with the players. He's going to be a player for us, and maybe not this year, but everybody's saying, why do we take him and all that? I guarantee you this guy's going to play for Georgia. I like his style. I like the way he acts. I like the way he looks you in the eye, and Willock impresses the heck out of me. And the other guy that I've been talking about since he got here for his first visit, and when I watched him work out, the next great player for Georgia is Jalen Carter. This guy is going to be a man among boys once he gets going. Trayvon Walker came in last year and did a tremendous job, and he was not quite as big and physical as Carter is, but his speed and quickness. But this guy, even though we got a lot of good D linemen, for the first time we got good depth there. Watch out for Jalen Carter to really make an imprint on our team. So that's it for me. I'll see you guys later.
Now you mentioned Willock, and I think that one of the things people forget about him a little bit because he was not as highly touted. He came into the class later. He was a 3-star guy. He even spent some time in the 2-star range kind of early on, but a physical specimen. A kid that I've had a chance to see some pictures of him working out back when he was in high school. And I mean, there's no question that he stacks up as well as anybody in that regard in terms of the Georgia room.
He committed to Penn State. I mean, Penn State's going to – and what I like about him, he wanted to come to Georgia so bad that even at the last minute when we had that situation happen with the kid that went to Florida and we came back in on him, I mean, I've had that happen before with me. I mean, I had a guy I had at Oklahoma that he and his mama both just cried all the way to the airport in the car because we had to drive to Oklahoma City. And I said, hey, if there's any way I'm going to, if there's any way that somebody changes, we're going to help you. And sure enough, a kid went to Texas that weekend and committed to them. And I had a guy from Southwest Airlines track this guy and wait on him when he got off the plane. And when he was off the plane, I had him give me the phone. And I said, Jason, we got a scholarship for you. Jason Belser, his dad played for the Chiefs. He played for the Chiefs. I mean, he's a pro player, and we got him at the last second. But, hey, you always hear about guys like that. Willock will be a player for us.
Well, hey, last second, we mentioned Eric Stokes.
Yeah. Oh, sure. I mean, that was day of. I mean, that was the morning of signing day.
Well, because he was supposed to announce at 3:00 in the afternoon at Eastside. Mm-hmm. And I got tipped off that Jordan, and because I was the guys that we expected to be in class, I showed it to somebody who would know, and he's like, "Yeah, you're missing one," and he wouldn't tell me who. And we had to remember we had a group chat that had that night. We had to go.
We had every possible scenario.
Yeah, but this is a guy who would know. I mean, he's a great source, and he's like, "You're missing a kid." And we're like, "Who the hell is it?" And then a while here, I'm like, "What about Stokes?" And sure enough, we reach out to him. He's like, "Yeah, I'm changing my thing. I'm now announcing at 8:00." So, and we've told the story many times before. It's 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and I'm reach out to Paul Mahary. I'm like, "You need to be at Eastside at like 7 a.m." And he was the only one there. And we put it in our prediction. And anyway, point being, that was the guy who they came back around on when they had a spot. And Devin Willock is going to suffer from that Plan B label. Could you lose? Was it Josh Braun?
Yeah, Josh Braun. Yeah,
Josh Braun goes forward, and so this is Josh. We raved about Braun. I mean, he's good. Tennis player, very highly ranked, and it feels like when you lose him and you bring somebody else in who's a 3-star, you're like, oh, he's the Plan B guy. But again, if you read Jason Butt's article, one of the first ones he did was about Willock. And you get really excited about this guy. And now coach is telling us, hey, here's a guy. Leadership from a true freshman?
It's interesting. Jason and I were kind of sitting down and brainstorming some ideas for some things for, what storylines maybe did we want to look into for the long-form pieces that he wanted to do. And Willock was a guy who kind of jumped out at me because I said,
we don't think about him.
Exactly. I said he was people considered him a kind of a throwaway a little bit. It was because you've got the 4 guys who were all Rivals 250 guys. Remember, there was the big thing about there was all 5 of them when it was Braun. You had 5 Rivals 250 guys. Nobody had ever done it. And then Braun decides to flip after Sam Pittman moves on. You get Willock in, and it was like, we got another big guy. We'll see how it works out. But, in Jason's piece, I thought he did a really good job of kind of looking into this kid. And from what those coaches said, it was a question of, we just didn't get this kid early enough. They said if we had an opportunity to have him in our strength and conditioning in our high school program, they said there's no question that you would have had the Alabamas, the Clemsons knocking down the door to get this kid.
James Franklin knocked down the door to get him.
That's true. So, I think that Willock is a very interesting one, certainly, and I think that that's a bold statement, Coach, because that's not the easiest thing.
Everybody knows about Broderick Jones and Ratledge and Van Pran. Yeah. There's no question that those guys are going to be players. I'm just saying that checking him out and listening around and everything. The guy is really fit in good here. And the one thing I would mention about Stokes, which I don't ever get to give you anything inside, but I remember Kirby Smart and Mike Bobo going to the state track meet Stokes' junior year. And
we were there.
And Kirby was telling me about how much he liked Stokes, but he didn't think he could take him at Alabama. He said, it's going to be hard for us to, we just got so many players and things like that. And, hey, he put that in the back of his mind. And, hey, at the last second, he knew what he wanted, and look what's happened. I mean, so that's a really good recruiting story there, too.
I'll never forget that day because Roddy and I had gone to the track meet. It was the day Chauncey Rivers, I think, got kicked off the team, if I'm not mistaken. And we had been hanging out. I think Miko had been running was
Nate
doing
McBride.
something. Nate was there. Jeremiah Holloman was definitely there. He was competing in several events.
We took like 4 kids at Peach County.
Yeah, it was a really loaded day. And I remember we were walking out, and they came over the loudspeaker, and they were like, 3A, 100 meters. First place, Eric Stokes, 10-4. And both of us stopped, and we were like, what?
Let's go back in there.
We need to see what's going on with this kid. I will never forget that.
But that's interesting because I remember Kirby and those guys being there, and they weren't there really to see him, but I did not know that he'd already reached out at that point.
Sure.
I mean, that's 2 years before kind of Kirby. I mean, before not 2 years, it's a full year before he kind of popped. So
well, and it was a situation with Eric where he kind of came off of that, and he got some of those speculative offers and some of those, I guess, what you would consider maybe mid-tier D1s. Colorado at the time was coming in, and Michigan State, I think, was another one that he had. But you just didn't get the sense maybe that he was an SEC caliber player from that early on. But kudos to Kirby for kind of keeping that note in the back of his mind because it certainly worked out all right.
Also, like the coach mentioned, Adam Anderson, and that's been a question we get all the time. What happened to Adam Anderson? Is he more than just a third down specialist? I mean, this was one of the top players in the nation, 5-star guy. And you look at him, and I mean, I've been on the field when Kirby Smart, I won't say yelled at him, but goaded him when they were doing these drills. He's like, Adam, you are in front of everybody. Adam, you're our fastest outside linebacker. Said it as a matter of fact. Got 10 other outside linebackers standing there. Didn't hold back, didn't sugarcoat it, and said, I need you to. They were running by, sweeping down, picking up a tennis ball off the ground, that first step that everyone talks about. And Adam is one of it, but Kirby is just admonishing him that even as fast as you are, you have to be faster. Basically, you can't get locked up with these guys. And I don't want to go back to a guy like TJ Stripling, but I just want to think back of guys who haven't really increased their mass, they don't look big. He looks like he did.
Adam looks like he did in high school.
Yeah.
It's not a situation where he's come in and beefed up, but
we haven't seen him in forever.
That's
so
true.
Maybe
that's true.
All of a sudden he's a little bit bigger. Maybe he's got better hands to get off blocks. But if Coach Donnan tells me, hey, that 5-star speed rush guy is one to keep an eye on, let's not typecast him as just the third down guy, I'm going to pay attention.
Now, I'm surprised that you said that about Adam Anderson as a guy we get questions about, because I feel like of all the guys he mentioned, Tommy Bush is the guy that people are like, is this kid ever going to do anything?
We're going to talk about Tommy Bush, but first I got to mention our friends over at Athens Ford. Okay. Because I need a break before I bring up the Tommy Bush thing. Give a big shout out to our friends at Athens Ford. They've been sponsoring us through this entire pandemic, and they've also been serving the Athens community and the Northeast Georgia community through the pandemic. Incredibly clean out there. Of course, they're social distancing. Of course, everything's immaculate out there. They take care of their customers. They've also come up with some fantastic deals to help people who have been hit by this thing. 40 million jobs lost. There's a lot of people out of work, a lot of people whose incomes have been hit. Even if they're still employed, they're making less money. So our friends at Athens Ford have been taking care of them with fantastic deals. They've been doing a great job working out financing deals. They have in-house financing, and I've spoken to some people who've just gotten a great deal. If you're looking for a new vehicle, I want to mention 2 real quick. If you want a Ford F-150,
the 2024, can I call you back just a little bit? I'm doing
0% APR financing for 72 months, or you can get $14,000 off. So 14 grand right off the top, or 0% financing for 6 years. Can't beat that. Or if you want to get the 2020 Ford Explorer, the XLT, I've seen it. I didn't get to drive one, but I actually looked into it to see what was different than my 2016. It's a lot nicer. And mine's fantastic, but I'm just saying that the 2020 Ford XLT Explorer is a majestic vehicle. $9,000 off for 0% financing for 72 months for qualified buyers. So, of course, everything you buy from them will have a lifetime powertrain warranty on all their new vehicles. And if you just go to their website, you'll get a $250 off coupon just for having an email address. So
I love that you used majestic to describe a vehicle. I like that. That's
if you get around those,
you can tell you're a writer.
The new Ford F-150. Well, I'm not a very good one, but if you get around those new Ford F-150s, they're stunning. You know, I did actually climb into one, and it feels like you're sitting on a couch. You know, it's fantastic.
Well, speaking of sitting on the couch, that's where a lot of people thought Tommy Bush would end up. I think that he's a guy. Again, he was sort of a late addition to the class. He came in on that signing day. What was that? 17, I guess, maybe 18. But a late addition to the class out of San Antonio. So it wasn't a guy that we'd covered, extensively by any stretch of the imagination. And I think people started to get into their mind that maybe he was on a trajectory, maybe not even as good as that of Matt Landers, where, it was like, he's this big guy, he looks great, but is he going to make an impact? It's interesting to hear Coach bring up his name, because I know that people want to know about it.
And the narrative about Matt Landers was this is a kid who's fantastic in the spring. He's had 2 great springs, and then when the season rolls around, he can't catch, or he can't get separation, or he has an issue. And Tommy was just kind of his name pops up every time they talk about, well, we need to get below 85 scholarships, And I think that there was a question last year of whether or not he was going to be in the transfer portal. Then he had the injury, and people and again, not to say fans write off people completely, but they're the ones they talk about. They're the ones they talk about who are plan B, the backup guys. And then they're the guys that they just, for whatever reason, don't work out. Not everyone's talking about Nate McBride right now, although he is a big contributor to this team. But when you're talking inside linebackers, you don't bring up Nate McBride. When you're talking wide receivers, you don't bring up Tommy Bush. You talk about the starters, then you talk about the next group of guys, and then there's the third string special teams players, scout team guys. And for you, Coach, to say, hey, keep an eye on that.
Well, I want to ask you this, Coach. When you look at a guy like Tommy Bush, what is it that he brings to the field? What are some of the skills that he has and some of the things that he's able to do well that make you feel that he can take that step forward this year?
When you watch him, he's a big guy, and he's got good hands, and he comes off the line smooth, and he catches the ball in traffic. And, he got injured last year and got behind the 8 ball, and we ended up being more of a running team and weren't using that many receivers, and Pickens surfaced, and, he just didn't get a shot. Now, I'm not – by doing this right now, I know I'm going out on a limb and just trying to give you something to talk about, but I'm very careful in my selections here, but I've been pretty good on them. So we'll see, but all things that I've heard about what he did leading up to spring practice, what he's done this summer, he's got a shot to maybe do some things that we haven't seen him do, and we'll see what happens. But he better do it, because he's got a lot of good freshmen. I mean, these freshman guys these players are going to be just what the doctor ordered there, as far as very good skill level and going to give us some very good depth going forward.
Speaking of the freshmen, I want to news that broke at UGASports.com. Maybe others have reported it. I don't really keep up with what our competition's doing, but we broke the news the other day that Arian Smith, the track star, talking about Eric Stokes, Arian Smith, we had mentioned, I guess it was a while back, that he had sort of a wrist surgery. We broke the news the other day that he had a procedure on his knee, not sure right or left, but to have his meniscus adjusted or scoped out. He had there's a minor surgery on his knee, but for a track guy to have any sort of scoping or meniscus issue, where we were told it was meniscus, but again, UGA can't confirm that, so we're just telling you what we heard. We heard that he has had that surgery done, or that procedure done, and therefore I would not count on him to be ready August 6th, 9th, whenever they actually start practice. And, of course, we also broke the news that Broderick Jones, number one offensive tackle?
Number one offensive tackle.
Number one offensive tackle in the nation had an accident on a motorbike. I've seen some people report that he's out for the year. That is not true. We were told from our sources that he will not be ready for the first part of camp, but he will recover. He should be fine. So, he's a tough guy. Last thing you want to do is have a guy that big have any sort of accident, but so a couple of Georgia's star players,
the young stars,
you were going to have to wait a little while longer.
Yeah, Washington, the Darnell Washington had scope too, so that's 3 of them.
Yeah,
these, but I guess if there's any time for it to happen, now is the time.
Right.
The summer before your freshman year is when you want that.
Well, I mean, you saw what happened with Georgia when Lawrence Cager got injured.
Sure.
When you have your prime contributor all of a sudden gets injured, and you're like, to your point, yeah. Who was it? Wasn't it Rion Davis that had, or Tresman Marshall, one of them had something prior to coming into school?
So Davis, I think Davis was the one who blew his knee out.
Davis had a shoulder situation.
That was it, yeah.
And then Walker hurt his hand, but he played with a cast.
Yeah.
So.
But I'm just saying, so sometimes there's I'm trying to go back to.
Good luck focusing.
Yeah, I can't. There's a lot of sandwiches here now. Slide us all the way and pull this back. All right. So for my friend who watches what we eat and just dies, I have the triple S sandwich here. We have seen the situation where guys have a injury or have something and happens in high school. They get to UGA and Ron Course is like, hey, let's check out that shoulder. Let's check out that knee. Let's check out that labrum that you injured. And we see a lot of labrum stuff, Oh, you had that high ankle sprain as you're in your senior year. Let's go back and check it. Then they see that, hey, this is going to present a problem for you 10 months from now, 18 months from now, 2 years from now. We're not saying you're going to redshirt, but if you do this now, if we correct this issue, which is what I kind of feel like happened with Arian Smith, if we fix this meniscus issue now, you have time to come back from that and it won't affect your, other year. So, and I'm not crapping on high school doctors.
There's only so much you can do. I mean, the medical facilities and the access to trainers they have over here is, it's like being in a hospital.
Yeah.
Ron Corson is a doctor by all accounts,
Well,
so.
There's a reason he's leading up, the NCAA and SEC responses to this whole virus thing. But point being, when they get in there and they start doing the x-rays, start looking at stuff, they're like, hey, this isn't bothering you now, but it's going to. That's why he's good at his job. So I know a lot of people are like, wow, these freshmen are falling like flies. No, a lot of this is preventative. Now, a motorbike accident that, was not foreseen, but some of this other stuff is it's planned so that you don't have a bigger issue later on. You don't lose a Lawrence Cager midway through the season when you absolutely need him. So
sure. Now, I think that all of that, is important, especially when you're talking about having guys ready. I think that feeds well into one of the big stories that broke yesterday, which was the transfer of Devon Wilson.
Yeah.
Announced he's going to the transfer portal. Coach, I guess touching on you here, did that feel surprising to you? Were you surprised to see a guy like Wilson kind of decide that it's time to explore his opportunities elsewhere?
He's had an up and down situation here from the standpoint of having that severe injury, the one spring and then coming back and playing a little bit and playing really good. And then last year he had some good situations there. But, you got a guy in Mark Webb who's really an outstanding player who is the first team star guy. And, we ended up with Stevenson coming in and being the dime guy who looking for playing time and all. I can't project it. I haven't talked to Kirby since I saw this, but and he wouldn't probably tell me anyhow. But
no.
I think the main thing with Newt, that's his nickname, I guess, is just the fact that he wants to go somewhere where he can play corner. And we got 4 corners here, that are really good, and we got good depth there, and we got some good corners coming in with Ringo. In the wings, and So it's something that we talked about a couple weeks ago on this podcast, that there's going to come a time where, these guys are looking for playing time. And we've been very fortunate. We've had very, very few guys leave this year, a couple walk-ups. But, 2 years ago, we had a lot of them leave, with Cox and Fields and Luke Ford and those guys. And so we lost Mays this year. But I don't know what the answer is. You got to recruit good players and you got to have competition. But, he's certainly a very good player, and I hate to see him leave. And I had a good relationship with him because I used to see him in the training room when he's doing the rehab, and we talked a lot. So I hate to see it happen, but I hope that for the best for him.
Yeah, and he mentioned, the opportunity maybe of going a little bit closer to home. I know a lot of people started floating the idea of Miami being a landing spot for him potentially. I was looking back at his ranking. That's a 4-star guy in the 2018 class, and it feels like he was recruited over, to a degree. I mean, I think that's the plan every year, is to recruit over everybody. But, that's a tough situation when you're running into that. And really, I think speaks a lot to the depth that Georgia has built back there in that secondary.
Well, you bring up a great point, because when he came in, he's an early enrollee. And at the end of that, or not at the end of that spring, but during that spring practice, we were talking about him running with the ones.
Yeah.
Okay, so he comes in as a high schooler. Now, I won't say true freshman.
No, I will say he didn't look like a high schooler.
No.
He was one of the biggest defensive backs they have physically.
And he comes in and he's tearing up spring camp. People are talking about him. Probably one of the guys' coaches like, hey, here's what I'm hearing. And then he tears his ACL. So you get ACL. That's brutal. It takes him forever to come back. But then he's healthy. Comes back in that bowl game, shows out, has a good year. Mark Webb flips sides. Goes from wide receiver to defensive back. Starts doing really well there. A lot of competition for that star spot. We see Tariq Stevenson come in and play really well. You had, Tariq McGee who played there as well. So it's a lot of competition to that spot. Now, all of a sudden, he's like, I want to get from star to corner, but you also have Tyson Campbell come in, 5-star. Eric Stokes, all SEC guy.
Keely Ringo
come in. So he's
Tyson Campbell.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So Tyson's there with the 5-star.
Three 5-star corners.
Yeah.
Plus a JUCO.
Yeah.
Oh, your audio's gone dead on us, Coach.
I do wrong.
There you go.
Yeah, you mentioned David Daniel.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not David
Daniel. All those
DJ.
guys, it's just and we talked about it. So I think about 4 weeks ago that we finally have a secondary situation that Kirby's really used to coaching at Alabama. Now the coach here, big, strong guys playing on the corner, pressure guys off the edge, big interior defensive linemen, fast inside backers. I mean, he's recruited. He's got the footprint for it. And whether Devad could start or not, it remains to be seen. But, based on last year, Webb played a whole lot more than he did. So he's probably looking at that. And then he missed the bowl game. I'm not sure why he missed it, but we certainly there's a lot of things out there to analyze. But basically, guys looking for playing time. That's the only way to look at it.
Well, and I think, too, you make a good point about Mark Webb and his ability to succeed there. But I think that it speaks very highly of these young kids that he's looking around and saying, when's my turn going to come? It speaks to Tyreek Stevenson being able to step in at that nickel spot and take over for or the star spot and take over for Mark Webb. It speaks to what he thinks about those cornerbacks and how those guys are progressing and the young depth that they've got there. I think that, there's no question Devad's a great player, but there's clearly a point where he had to say, can I win the battle here? I don't know.
Yeah, and plus, let's not discount the whole connection with the coronavirus thing going around. Sure. If all of a sudden you test positive, you're being sent back home, so he's going all the way back to Miami. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of travel. A lot of people don't want to be away from their families during this time. So it kind of preys on your mind. You're like, hey, if mom, dad needs something, I'm not there to help them. I'd like to see them, or they can't travel up here because travel is going to be a lot more restricted. It's a lot more of a pain in the butt. So it surprised me, but I understand it. So
I will say too, I thought it was a very classy statement that he issued and said, I've really enjoyed my time here. I love the fans,
and it's sincere.
Thank you guys so much for welcoming me in. So I think Divide's a kid that everybody can root for.
I spoke to somebody within the program, and they were stunned because they said, "Look, this kid loves Georgia, absolutely loves it." Now, that's not to say that maybe he liked the depth chart or like anything else that may be going on, but they said that this guy's always wearing his Georgia gear, always raving about it, talks about his brothers. It wasn't one of those disgruntled guys,
right.
So
look at this too. Look at this part. He was the lead recruiter as far as entertaining Stevenson, Campbell, Kenny McIntosh. All three of these guys. Two of them played at his school, and so he definitely did a good job there. But there's some pros and cons. We talk about the virus, and that's certainly not our job to talk about that. But the negative of not having spring practice, basically, a lot of these kids could have maybe overtaken some other guys, or now you don't have the luxury of having a whole lot of going back and forth and experimenting. You got to get ready for your first game. Hopefully our first game is when we think it's going to be, but you're going to have to get those guys out there, and that's why you're not going to see a lot of younger guys playing on defense, I don't think, because of the experience we have as compared to maybe offense we might. But it's just going to be a different type of fall camp, and it's unfair to guys like him and Tommy Bush and so many of these guys that are coming back thinking they might make an imprint in spring practice, and you're going out to fall practice where the offensive coordinator's never seen you have shoulder pads on.
That's a great point, Coach. I didn't even think about that. And this is not a shot against Kirby Smart, but if on my first day of practice, not having a spring, what would I do? I'd grab my depth chart from last year, scratch out the guys that have moved on to the NFL, and the guys that were their backups immediately move up.
You're going to turn to guys you trust. Yeah, right. Guys that you've seen in the heat of battle.
And if you're the Tommy Bush, the Devon Wilsons of the world, the Davis, anybody who is a Logue or some of those guys on the defensive line, you're like, well, I really wanted to show you what I could do in spring. I had another season under my belt, or my first season under my belt. Some for those guys, it's their first spring, because they came in June and played the season as freshmen. They want to show what they can do. So, yeah, I could see where some guys might feel like it's going to be forever before I get a chance to show them what I can do. So I didn't even thought about that. That's why we have Coach on the show. That's why I explains things. What Coach is missing, though, is the bangers and mash. I've had this bangers and mash. It is phenomenal. Okay.
Majestic.
It's majestic. The sausages are fabulous. The potatoes there, creamiest thing. They feel like grandma's. You'll love them. What I'm really enjoying, though, is this the shrimp here, the chili shrimp. Kind of amazing. And then, of course, we have the Cerebus sandwich. Every restaurant kind of has its signature dish. I think if they just sold this Cerebus sandwich, they could sell thousands of them.
I agree.
It's this 3 meats. Cerebus, the 3-headed dog that guarded the entrance to Hades. They have 3 different meats here: the pork shoulder, the pastrami, and the third one I can't remember.
Little ham.
Yep. Yeah. And you see behind us, they have I don't know if folks see it as well, but there's a big painting of Cerebus on the back wall. Athena behind us on the other side. We're in the multi-use room here at Academia Brewing Company. You can use it for a wedding reception. You can use it for corporate events. We're standing on the stage and come here and have a band play. All the frats or sororities want to have a big party, come out here. You're in a brewery with a restaurant that has a world-class chef in it. So, the catering, the food, the beer, and you lock it off. You don't have guys coming off the golf course, walking in here, interrupting your stuff, or a loud brunch group back there, cackling over mimosas, and you can't hear what you're saying. This room is separate. It's the other half of the building. So if you need anything for your corporate events, swing out and check out our friends here at Academia Brewing Company. I want to get to one question right off the bat because it's something the coach just mentioned. this is for UGA Alum 95 on Twitter. This question for the show: are the in-home visits and on-campus visits starting to hurt Kirby in recruiting?
Yeah, so I've got a lot of those questions today. I've got multiple people. I really liked how this guy phrased his. He said,
"Shrimp."
He said, "Is now the time to panic about recruiting? How about now? Why or why not?" I understand people's concerns, and I do think Georgia did lose a commit over the weekend to Marlon Dean, big defensive tackle, defensive lineman out of Elbert County. I will say, for those, there's been a lot of conjecture around that. I don't think that was something that Georgia saw coming. I don't think it was a situation where the Bulldogs decided it was time to move on from him and recruit a higher rated kid. So I think that this was just honestly, I think simply this was an opportunity for a kid from a small town, like Mikkel, who wanted to see what else was out there in the world and get recruited again and have that opportunity. I mean, Marlon committed early, and with a guy like that so close to home, it doesn't how much extra energy does another team expend on recruiting him when it feels like he's pretty much locked up and he's going where he's going. So he reopens things, has the opportunity now to kind of explore it. I think Georgia will continue to recruit him. I do think that there's probably something to this idea of maybe a lack of these in-home visits and on-campus visits affecting Georgia, because I do think that that's one of the things that the staff does very well is they recruit well in person. They come across to these kids as very personable. And it's a little bit harder, I think, to connect like that when you're on Zoom or something of that nature, and a platform like this that we're using. Yeah. I do think that there is I don't see it as a level of concern, really. If it's mid-November and we're still talking about the same thing, then yeah, possibly. But as I've said in the past, this is a group and a staff that really thrives off of how they finish. They're focused on that. They're focused on on-field results as well and how that affects everything. I think a lot of people believed that, talking about going back to Tony Grimes, that if he had not decided to reclassify, that perhaps the on-field performance of UNC versus UGA might have swayed his decision a little bit more.
Right.
I think that all of that's true. I think all of that matters. And, I'm curious to see how they'll handle it. They haven't given me any reason to doubt their ability to this point.
Let me jump in here real quick. Here.
All right.
Let me jump in here because I'm the recruiting guy. Hey, the in-home visits don't matter because you can't go in their house till December 1st.
True.
So that doesn't matter. That hadn't hurt us a bit. I mean, nobody's going in. Anybody could have gone in anybody's house. So December 1st is the first time you can actually make an in-home visit or something close to that, unless they've changed it a little bit. You can certainly bump into them and all that, but the head coach. Now, the thing that's hurt us a little bit is more than anything, it's the camp evaluations, kids coming to camp, meeting with the coaches, having the day that we have where all the juniors and some sophomores come in and play games and have that day, where like Ringo and Washington and all those guys came, even Mims came last year. That's hurt us, but we got to in-state. We've done really well with guys.
Oh, you went dead on me again.
Am I back on?
There you go.
Must be something to do with my finger here holding this thing. So, but basically, it's a new playbook for recruiting. And whereas, everybody was jumping off the bridge over in Alabama because they were like 50th, and then they've hit about 5 or 6 kids here, and now they're up really high. But they got one that we wanted there in Ferguson, but we're going to get some that they want too. So I think it's just I'm not ready to say that this is going to be the best class that we've ever had like I thought it was going to be when we started back in January. But still, we got a lot of good players out there that we have a good shot at getting. But it's hurt us for sure. The guy that asked the question, it's hurt us on campus visits, camps, evaluation. And it not only hurts you for the 2021 guys, but the 21, 22, all those younger guys that we always have come to camp and jump on them early.
Yeah, and you mentioned too, Coach, and I think it's important. It's something that I've told people a lot about this class, or about Georgia specifically, is that these guys, this staff trusts their in-person evaluations about as much and values them about as much as any staff in the country, I think. And, the opportunity to not have those guys, I just don't see a situation where Georgia is taking guys sight unseen, as you're seeing in some of these other schools around the country. I think they've got the luxury and the depth to not have to do that.
I think you also need to make the point that what do we see over the last 2 cycles? When you're pulling in a Darnell Washington, when you're pulling in a Keely Ringo, when you're pulling in a Kendall Milton, you're out in California, you're in New Jersey, you're in Rhode Island,
Yep.
You're recruiting nationally. Those kids can't visit. Is Georgia in it for Mason Smith, the number 1 defensive tackle in the nation?
They are.
But not until he visits.
Exactly.
He's not going to do anything sight unseen.
Sure.
So is it hurting with him? Yeah, you could still get him, but you got to get him on campus first. When we interviewed him out in New Orleans in the February or so, or March, he already tried to get to campus 3 times.
Yep.
3 times he tried, and because something came up, it's cumbersome to make that trip. You have to have somebody go with you, stuff like that. And so he's like, I'm going to go. I think it was like March 23rd. It's set in stone. I'm going to go, and then pandemic hits.
Well, and another guy I think of like that is Donovan Edwards, the Rivals 100 running back out of Michigan.
Right.
A guy who had said, I'm really high on Georgia. I love what Georgia has to offer. I want to see him. And then rug pulled out from under you. Suddenly, you're able to get over to Ann Arbor. That's maybe not as, as you said, a cumbersome of a trip, but getting to Athens and not being able to spend time with anybody doesn't feel worth it for some of these guys. Now, Brock Bowers, it works for him because he's had a chance to meet with the coaches before. He's had a chance to do it. He came back to say, well, can I see myself here? Can I still see myself here? And, I think, though, that with guys like Edwards, it has been it's been tough.
We did get Edwards here, though. We did have Edwards here on the last junior weekend. He did come in. He came in, so that gives us a shot. But like you mentioned, it'd be good for him to come to camp and do the other things. But it would be impossible to even be in with any of these guys if they hadn't been here at least once. And
that's working out in Georgia's favor with James Williams, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that,
so his coach is saying.
Yeah, the opportunity to have seen these guys multiple times, that feels like a huge benefit. We talked to James Williams over the weekend, number 20 player in the nation, number 2 safety in the country. And he said, for me, what it is with Georgia is I've gotten to be there. I've gotten to experience the brotherhood that they've got. I've been able to see how these guys treat each other and how their coaches treat them. And for him, that's been very impactful. I will say, too, one of the more underaccounted for things I think that's happening in this class is you don't have guys taking these visits together. You don't have guys.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have guys going to the opening together, or Rivals 5-Star Challenge, or having those times to just hang out at the hotel and say, man, wouldn't it be cool if we ended up playing together? Or, hey, here's what Charlton Warren could probably do for you.
Clay Webb and James Cook.
Yeah.
At the Rivals 5-Star Challenge.
Right.
James Cook was like, I want to run behind a good line. Clay Webb, I'm a great lineman.
How successful, too, has that been for Georgia over the past few classes? They've weaponized their own recruits to turn into recruiters. And, without that ability, I think that's been difficult. Now,
it's almost like you had a story about that recently.
I'm not saying everybody's not at that same disadvantage. Don't get me wrong. But it is something I think that Georgia's put a focus on in the past, and it's something that they're unable to do this year.
That's a good point. Hey, before we get to any of the other questions we have, I want to mention our friends at Aaron Overhead Doors have talked about their giant new warehouse. If you go to their website now, there is a section called Specials. They have these coupons there. Like right now, let's say you are not expecting that you need a new garage door, but all of a sudden you do. And you're like, wow, this is kind of an unexpected expense that I really don't have the money for right now. They do have 0% financing for 12 months on doors and motors. Okay, so you can spread out your payments over 12 months, no cost to you. That's pretty cool there. If you want to do a really long one, like say, because remember they do a lot of commercial work, they have a reduced rate of 9.99% for 84 months. So if you're doing some commercial work and you need something like that, they have it for you there. They give 5% off to teachers, military, first responders, and anybody over 65. I mean, just 5% off. And don't forget the 10% off if you're a UGA fan. I don't know if you can combine those. You better ask them. I don't want to say something and get in trouble with Ryan Lucia and the folks out there. But, again, teachers, maybe former teachers.
Yeah. Maybe. I bet they'd make an exception.
Military folks, first responders, anybody over 65, you get 5% off. And remember, if you're a Georgia fan, you get 10% off. Or $50 off a motor when purchased with a door. So you want that garage door opener, need a motor to open it up. $50 off. So it's worth it just to go to the website. And speaking of websites, I tell everybody each week, sign up for the Your Pie app. The other day, I got the little notification from Your Pie app. Hey, it's free gelato day. Do you know how cool free gelato day is? It's like, what? Come by for free ice cream. I'm like, I can do that. I can make time in my busy COVID schedule to swing by a ridiculously clean and immaculate Your Pie location, of which there are tons, and get a free gelato. So shout out to Your Pie for sponsoring the show, but B, for the curbside service they do. And the app is perfect. It's just like going in the store. You type in all the toppings that you want. It's custom made. You drive up to the store. They bring it out to you. You can't beat it. It's
and they're always hooking you up with free pizza.
Yeah, and again, use their app. It's just you get all the points for it. You get free pizzas all the time, and then there seems to be like a special every week. If you order this pizza, you get 4 times the amount of points. If you order on this day, you get 5 times the amount of points. Hey, here's free this with that. It's just ridiculous. So shout out to Aaron Overhead Doors and Your Pie for hooking up our listeners and viewers.
All right, we got some questions here. We'll hop on real quick.
I'm going to keep eating this chili shrimp.
Colossal Chicken over on the board says, hearing any more portal concerns, any more concerns about guys moving on possibly? I know we reported a couple of other guys had moved on, but those were walk-ons as well. So any concerns, any other names that you've heard out, or the possibility that we could hear some more?
Remember in spring, we were told that to expect a few to go into the transfer portal. And now Georgia's sitting, I believe, 3 over, 2 over, somewhere in that way. Well, I'll tell you what, I know Anthony Dasher at UGASports.com has this down because he keeps up with the roster and actually has a spreadsheet that shows how many guys are on scholarship. So we'll have him be sure that is updated and accurate. And it's really neat to see where they fall because a lot of guys redshirt, a lot of guys have a medical redshirt. Some have, they fall in different spots. It's nice to see how everybody lines up by class and by position. It's a neat spreadsheet. It's a quick view. We have guys like Nostalgia 80 on there who keep up with all the
a monster.
I'm a monster guy. Keep up with all that. So to the point being, I haven't heard the names yet, but Georgia is over the limit. So therefore, some guys are going to have to move on.
Yeah, we're going to have to be at 85 when the fall camp starts too. So yeah. I don't know what the number is either, but there's going to be, we lost Newton, so I don't know how many more, but you got to be at 85 when it starts.
Yep.
Question here from Gus and Toby says, any info on Dom Blaylock and how he's looking after his injury last year? You heard anything on that, Dom, Roddy?
I've heard good things about Dom Blaylock. And again, guy suffers an ACL injury at the end of the season. And everyone's like, oh, well, he's done for the, so late in the year. I've heard great things about him.
Yeah, me too. I think the fact that he's come along so well, throughout the spring before COVID, I was over there getting treatment on my foot, and I saw Dom working out. And I've asked a couple guys that I've seen since then that they say he's doing straight ahead stuff now, and he's doing everything. They're not going against the defense yet, but he's doing pretty much everything everybody else is.
Not bad. I know.
I didn't heard that.
I know people will be looking forward to seeing Dom out there this year. And listen, if there's one kid that is fighting like hell to get back out there, it's Dom Blaylock. He loves the University of Georgia.
Well, that's what I've been told was to expect him back this year. Okay. That's why I say when I've heard on his timeline was ahead of schedule, which we always hear that. You never hear, oh, this guy's really had but it's better than suffered another setback, which we've also heard before. I remember a few of those, but
the other thing it helps you with is catching punts and returning punts. You got a veteran guy going into a season where you got some things up in the air with a new kicker, place kicker and all that. You know, you're going to have a veteran punter and a veteran punt returner.
Question from Yes Sir. He says a lot of people are getting nervous about recruiting. Should we be concerned? Do you think recruits will be able to take officials this fall, and do you predict a top 5 finish? I do think Georgia is certainly within striking distance of the top 5 finish. That's not a question. I think you're going to see them around that area every single year.
Give us some names that would put them there.
I mean, well, certainly Corey Foreman and Mason Smith would help, but those are a little bit out there. I mean, a guy like Smile Munden would help. A guy like Tyrion Ingram Dawkins would go a long way to that end. And I think with Marlon Dean opening things back up, you open a window for Ingram Dawkins, perhaps. If you're looking at the wide receiver recruiting, there's a lot of options out there, but Georgia with Adonai Mitchell now able to be a little bit more selective. So you're able to maybe put your eggs in one basket of a higher ranked guy and say, hey, you're our guy. We're pushing hard. Brock Bowers would certainly help that. What do you do about the running back situation? If you don't get a guy like Donovan Edwards, maybe does a guy like Amari Daniels come back into the fold? All of those guys, highly ranked pieces. It's not a situation.
Don't forget Mims.
Oh, well, and then, Amarius Mims would help pretty much.
I was just waiting on you to say that.
He would help as well.
Yeah. Now you're talking, okay, you get each one of those names, and all of a sudden you're like 7th. You're up to 10, you're up to 9, you're up to 7th. Get Mims, all of a sudden you're sitting in number 6, and some of those names start falling in there. But you got to remember, when you look at the rankings, Georgia doesn't have that many commits. But when it comes to average star rating, they're right at the top.
Well, and also too, a guy like Dylan Fairchild ranked as a 3-star right now. If the football season goes on as planned, and he's got a chance to get reevaluated, I don't see any way that he doesn't make a move up.
Yeah.
Jamon Dumas Johnson, could he possibly take that step as well? It's a situation where there's a lot of unknowns surrounding the world of recruiting. We haven't been able to evaluate as we normally do. And I think that once things are able to open back up and you're able to get a sense for that, you could even see some movement from some of the
we need camps and we need film. We're not going to get camps, but hopefully we'll get film. A lot of people said, why haven't you reevaluated your rankings? Based on what?
Right.
Now, that's not to say that there are a lot of guys who we need to add to the rankings whose film is just now being processed, and that happens year after year. Someone says, well, why did this guy drop? He went from 31st to 39th. Well, we added 8 people to the that we weren't ranked before. We moved them up after seeing them at camp or seeing something like that. The only one to worry about, folks, is the last one.
That's right.
Don't worry about things moving up and down. And it would be silly right now to go in and start moving guys around that we thought maybe we over evaluated or under evaluated. And the first time one of those guys drops, the first critique you're going to see is, how could he drop? There was no football. Yeah. And it wouldn't matter that somebody had been moved ahead of him. It would just be the immediate accusation. You moved him down and he didn't play. What the hell did you base it on? So let's wait till we actually have something to base it on to adjust it. Dylan Fairchild, 47-0 on the wrestling match, just absolutely destroying people.
Go watch the film. That's not a 3-star film.
Yeah.
But we haven't had the chance to reevaluate.
So let's get a little more. Hopefully he plays. Our analysts look at it and go, "Wow, we were wrong there," and they move him up.
Jeff P47 over on YouTube says, do you think any high school players may come in from states like California to play their senior season? Now I think you're going to see all kinds of stuff like that. Virginia is going to see an exodus. California is going to see an exodus.
A lot of Californians going to Texas.
I've
already been told.
I've heard, and I didn't mention this in our in the piece I did because it just didn't really fit with what I was writing about. But I asked Brock Bowers the question, what happens if there's not a season? He said, I've already been looking at the possibility of going to Nevada, maybe. Yeah. So, I think that that's on the table for everybody. Everybody wants to stay in shape. Everybody wants to be performing. They want to make sure that they're ready for when they arrive at the next level, and they know that playing is the only way really to make sure that that's the case. So,
well, and I keep seeing that, what was that hashtag running around by the NFL? We want to play.
Yeah.
That permeates college. It permeates high school as well. And we can argue ad nauseum whether it's a good idea or not. But I'm just telling you, these are prime athletes who, right or wrong, I don't say they feel that they're immune to it, but they've looked at the numbers and it's really not hitting young people as much as it's hitting people my age and, of course, Coach Donnan's age. You know, the older you are, the worse this thing is. They're going to feel almost immune to it, and they're looking at their future on the lines. If they don't play, then again, like the guys that missed spring, they look, I need that senior film. A, I want to play my senior year, but B, I want to get recruited by so-and-so. I want to improve my options. So we see people, you're in California and California shuts it down. They're like, hey, don't I have an aunt in Odessa? Don't I have a third cousin in Conyers?
Dad, you know? Don't you want a piece of property in Montana?
I'm just saying it is going to happen.
No.
To me, there's no question there.
I do want to give a big shout out, by the way, speaking of great players, Dog of the Decade going on at UGAsports.com. We're down to the quarterfinals, I believe. Semifinals. This is a matchup this week that you don't want to miss. It's Gurley versus Roquan. The winner of that will take on the winner of Chubb versus Murray, versus Aaron Murray. So get over to UGAsports.com. Vote for your favorite dog of the decade.
Pick your best child.
I don't know. That's a tough one for me. Honestly, I wish we had the opportunity to see Todd and Roquan kind of go at it more in practice. That would have been awesome.
No, that's terrifying if you're a Georgia fan. You're like, somebody's going to get hurt. It's like your children wailing on each other. You don't want to see it happen.
But get out there and check that one out. Great series from our guys, Dave McMahon and Patrick Arbin.
We've had a lot of other publishers in this industry tell me that they are impressed that series has gone as well as it has. They wish they had thought of it. And this is a Dave McMahon and Patrick Arbin unique one. It's really well done.
Who knows how their brains work?
Except for some crappy voiceover but no, other than that, it's been a fantastic series. Again, and when I looked at that Roquan Gurley pick, I'm like, that's hard.
That's a tough one. A couple of parting shots here I want to point out. Georgia was in the mix yesterday for the commitment of Marcus Burke. He ends up at Florida. I'm told that one's not over. Watch that one going forward. Still a lot to like there. I think that it was a situation where he said, I'm going to do it. He went with what he knew, what was familiar. Georgia's really ramped the effort up there with Burke, so don't think that's the last you're going to hear out of him. Out of Jacksonville, Trinity Christian, yeah. So Glenn Schumann's done some tremendous work in the Jacksonville area with recruiting down there. And then Wednesday, tomorrow, commitment coming down from CJ Cedric Washington out of Cedartown. Georgia in the mix there. You got to think maybe Nick Chubb, his workout partner through the COVID, maybe been in his ear about that, but he's got some great competitors in there. LSU, a major factor as well. I do think Georgia's the team to beat. And
so you're really be on commit watch.
I think you could be. I think that's fair to say. Watch out for this kid too, and go watch the film, man. He's a big young man. He's impressive.
Position and year?
Inside linebacker 2022. Now, possibly could he play outside, maybe with a hand in the ground? Depends on how much bigger he gets. To me, he kind of looks like he is where he is physically, and he's probably where he's going to be, and that's just fine because he's about 6'2.5", like 230. So he's going to be all right.
That sounds like a Kirby Smart inside linebacker.
I agree. All right, Coach, anything else you got?
No, I'm just worried about you guys starving to death over there.
I'm just staring at the food.
Well, before we do,
in the show so I can stare at the food some more.
Before we do starve to death, let's go ahead and wrap it up.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We want a big shout out to our friends at Athens Ford, Aaron Overhead Doors, Your Pie, Academia Brewing Company, and a new sponsor to come on later. Of course, I always forget to mention our friends at 365 Game Day. We do share this podcast on their page. If you need Georgia gear, you got anniversaries coming up, start of the season, you want new gear for it, check out our friends at 365 Game Day. They do a great job. And, of course, if you need news, if you're looking for a place to trust when it comes to news, and if you know me, I'm the biggest critic of the media that there is, check out our friends at 11 Alive Sports. They do a great job covering all the high school stuff and all the professional teams in Georgia. But the 11 Alive News Division does a great job there, so I want to thank them as well. And, Coach, we really appreciate you being on the show. We're going to bring you some food. Probably not what you want, but we're going to bring you something.
Are you bringing it yourself or what?
No, I'm gonna make him do it.
Yeah, that's
You don't want this. You don't want this triple out of sandwich
That's
with like 4 bites taken out of it.
lackey duties. That's what I get.
I appreciate it.
All right. For Riding the Bullseye, Dave McMahon, Coach Donnan, shout out to our buddy Dane. I'm Jake Roos. We'll catch you guys next week. Thanks.